Welcome back to Nightly Haven. I'm your host, Nikki. Tonight, we're going somewhere you probably shouldn't go alone. Somewhere the trees grow so tightly together that the sunlight struggles to reach the forest floor. A place where the paths seem to disappear, where compasses have been known to strangely behave, and where visitors claim they experience something far more disturbing than simply getting lost. They say they lost time. Not 5 minutes, not 15, sometimes hours. They entered the forest, and when they came back out, the clock didn't agree with them. Now, before you grab your hiking boots and decide this sounds like a fun little afternoon adventure, let me give you some advice. Maybe don't. Because tonight we're exploring some of the world's forests surrounded by stories of missing time, strange sensations, unexplained encounters, and people who swear that something happened to them while they were among the trees. And one particular forest that has earned a reputation so strange is sometimes called one of the most mysterious forests in the world. Welcome to the forest where people claim they lose time. And if you think that's creepy, wait until you hear what else people say happens there. Deep in Romania, near the city of Cluj-Napoca, sorry if I said that wrong, lies a forest with a name that sounds like it was invented specifically for a horror movie. The Hoia-Baciu Forest. And yes, it really exists. No, it isn't called something like Happy Little Woodland. And for decades, the forest has developed a reputation for strange occurrences. Visitors have reported unusual lights, unexplained feelings of anxiety, strange shapes, electrical disturbances, and perhaps most famously, UFO sightings. But there's another part of the legend that makes people particularly interesting: time. Some visitors claim that once they enter the forest, they become disoriented. They couldn't remember exactly where they had been. They felt as though only minutes had passed, only to discover that much longer had gone by. And that's where things get really interesting, because getting lost in a forest isn't exactly paranormal. Anyone who has ever confidently announced, "I know where I'm going," approximately 3 minutes before realizing they have absolutely no idea where they are, understands this. Forests are good at messing with people. Trees block landmarks, trails split, light changes. Your sense of direction can disappear surprisingly quickly. And when you're stressed or frightened, your perception of time can become distorted. So perhaps there's nothing supernatural happening at all, but this forest isn't famous because someone took a wrong turn. It's famous because of the stories, and those stories have been circulating for decades. One of the oldest stories associated with the forest involves a shepherd. According to local legends, sometime in the early 20th century, a shepherd entered the forest with a flock of sheep, and then he disappeared. Not just the shepherd, but the sheep disappeared too. 100 sheep, according to some versions of the story. Completely gone. No trace, no explanation. And here's where folklore does what folklore does best. It takes an already strange disappearance, adds a mysterious forest, and gives everyone something to talk about for generations. But there's an important distinction here. The story is part of folklore surrounding the forest, not a case where a neat stack of police records proving that a shepherd and exactly 100 sheep vanished in another dimension. That's important because the forest has accumulated so many legends that separating documented history from folklore can be very difficult. And that's actually part of what makes this place so fascinating. Because once a location becomes associated with a mystery, every strange event happens there becomes part of that story. A strange light, the forest. A lost hiker, the forest. A camera malfunction, obviously the forest. And somewhere eventually someone will suggest aliens. It's practically a requirement. But this forest has something particularly strange about its landscape. At the center of the forest is an area known as the clearing, and this clearing has become one of the most famous locations associated with the forest. Visitors have reported strange sensations there. Some describe feeling watched, others report headaches, dizziness, nausea, or sudden anxiety. And then there are stories of unexplained lights, small lights, glowing objects, strange shapes appearing in photographs. This is one of the reasons this forest has been associated with UFO sightings. And one of the most famous images connected with the forest dates back to 1968. The Romanian biologist named Emil Barnia reportedly photographed what appeared to be a disc-shaped object hovering above the forest. The photograph became famous. It has been described as one of Romania's most compelling UFO photographs. Now, does this prove that aliens were visiting Romania? No. It proves that someone took a photograph of something they believed was unusual. What the object actually was remains debated. And that's an important distinction because mystery is fun, but mystery doesn't automatically equal aliens. Unfortunately, the internet sometimes has the scientific methodology of a toddler who just discovered stickers. If I can't explain it, aliens. This brings us back to the strangest part, the missing time. The stories about distortion aren't unique to Hoia-Baciu. I'm probably saying that wrong, but we're keeping it in. People around the world have reported similar experiences in the forest, mountains, deserts, and other isolated locations. Someone goes for a walk, they think they've gone 30 minutes, and then they return and discover 2 hours have passed. Or they become convinced they've only been walking for a short time, only to realize they've traveled much farther than expected. There are several perfectly ordinary explanations for this. First, human beings are terrible clocks. Your brain isn't carrying around a tiny stopwatch saying, "Congratulations, Nikki, you have now been outside for precisely 47 minutes and 17 seconds. Time perception changes depending on what you're doing. When you're bored, 5 minutes can feel like an eternity. When you're having fun, an hour can just disappear. When you're frightened, your perception can become even stranger. And when you're lost, you may completely lose track of time altogether, especially in the forest. Think about what happens when you walk through a dense forest. There may be no buildings, no clocks, no traffic lights, no familiar streets. The sunlight filters through the trees can make it difficult to judge the time of day. You walk around a bend, then another, then another. You look back and everything looks exactly the same. Your brain starts searching for landmarks, but there aren't any, and suddenly you aren't sure how long you've been walking. This phenomenon can never say that word. This phenomena can become especially pronounced when someone is stressed. Your attention becomes focused on survival and navigability. Your attention becomes focused on survival and navigation. You're not thinking, yes, exactly 93 minutes have passed. You're thinking, where the hell is my car? And honestly, fair. Because sometimes experiencing itself can be incredibly convincing. Imagine entering a forest at noon. You walk what feels like 20 minutes. You see something strange, maybe a light, maybe an unfamiliar structure. Maybe you simply become disoriented. You continue to walk. Eventually, you find your way back. And suddenly, it's nearly 3 in the afternoon. Your brain has to explain that missing chunk of time. And when you can't remember what happened during it, the experience becomes something much bigger than simply losing track of time. It becomes a mystery. Some people have connected these experiences to UFO encounters. Others have suggested portals, time slips, alternate dimensions, or even some kind of electromagnetic anomaly. And yes, those theories are fascinating, but there's a problem. There isn't reliable scientific evidence showing that this forest is a portal to another dimension. That would actually be cool. And wouldn't that make an absolutely fantastic Nightly Haven episode? Just saying. Would I like to personally test that theory? Absolutely not. because I have enough problems in this dimension. And then there's a detail that makes photographs of this forest so memorable. The trees, some of them are strangely twisted, bent, curved, almost spiraling towards the sky. Photographs of the forest often show trunks that look as though someone grabbed them and twisted them by hand. Naturally, this has produced plenty of theories. Some people believe the unusual shape are evidence of paranormal activity. Others point to environmental causes. Trees don't need ghosts to grow strangely. Light conditions, competition for sunlight, genetics, damage, disease, wind, and other environmental factors can all affect how trees grow. But when you're standing inside a forest filled with crooked trees and you've already heard stories about missing time, well, your imagination is going to do what imagination does. Suddenly, every tree looks like it's watching you. That one, definitely judging you. That one probably knows where you parked. And that one has seen things. What makes this forest especially interesting is that stories continue to circulate. Visitors have reported strange noises. Others have described unusual lights moving through the trees. Some claim to experience unexplained physical sensations, and photographers have reported strange anomalies disappearing in their photographs. But again, we have to separate the experience from the explanation. A person can genuinely experience something strange without knowing what caused it. That's the difference between saying, I saw something I couldn't explain, and saying, I saw a portal to another dimension. The first is an observation. The second is an interpretation. And Nightly Haven is all about exploring that space in between. Because sometimes the truth is stranger than legend, and sometimes the legend is stranger than truth. And here's where the story gets even more interesting. This forest isn't the only one that with stories about strange experiences. Around the world, forests have developed reputations for unexplained disappearances, unusual lights, strange sounds, and people becoming disoriented. Japan has a forest, for example, that has become surrounded by a large body of folklore and popular supernatural stories. Other forests across North America and Europe have their own legends, and the similarities are fascinating. People enter, they become disoriented, they lose their bearings, they report strange sounds or lights, and sometimes they claim time didn't behave normally. Now, does that mean all these forests are connected? Probably not. Forests are environments that naturally make navigation difficult. There are also places where human beings have historically projected their fears. For thousands of years, the forests have represented the unknown, the place beyond the village, the place where the path ends, the place where you can't see what's watching you. And maybe that's why so many cultures have stories about mysterious things hiding among the trees. So, does the forest actually make people lose time? There's no good scientific evidence proving that this forest or any other is capable of literally bending time. But people absolutely can lose track of time in unfamiliar environments. Stress can alter our perception. Disorientation can make distance feel strange. And memory isn't a perfect record, it's reconstructed. That means two people can experience the same event and remember it differently. And when something frightening happens, those differences can become even greater. So perhaps there's no portal, no dimensional tear, no invisible force swallowing hours from unsuspecting hikers. Perhaps it's simply the human brain, combined with very confusing environment, combined with fear, combined with decades of stories. But then there are reports that refuse to fit neatly into the box. The lights, the photographs, the strange experiences, the stories passed down by locals, the people who insist something happened to them but they cannot explain. Those stories don't prove the supernatural, but they do leave us with something worth investigating. Maybe the forest isn't stealing time. Maybe we're simply terrible at keeping track of it. Maybe the strange lights are aircraft. Maybe they're atmospheric effects. Maybe twisted trees are simply nature doing what nature does. Maybe every mystery surrounding this forest has a perfectly ordinary explanation. Or maybe not. There's something we haven't figured out yet. And that's the part I love about mysteries. You don't have to believe every legend. You don't have to accept every theory. Sometimes you can simply stand in the middle, look at the evidence, listen to the stories, and admit, I don't know. Because I don't know is where every investigation begins. And if you ever find yourself walking through a forest and suddenly realize you have no idea how long you've been in there, maybe check your watch, check your phone, check the position of the sun, and definitely check where you parked. Because if the stories are wrong, you've simply gotten lost. But if they're right, well, let's just say I hope you remembered to bring a flashlight. Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm Nikki. This is Nightly Haven. And remember, sometimes the darkest mysteries aren't hiding in abandoned buildings or ancient ruins. Sometimes they're waiting quietly between the trees, and sometimes the thing you lose in the forest isn't your way home. It's time. Have a good night, guys. Bye.